Hi YouTube, I'm Doug Jr.
And I'm Doug the Third.
And you're watching
Doug and Doug Gaming.
Alright, so I want to do this overview on Terraforming Mars. I don't really need to do a review because we love the game. I've played this, I don't know, dozens of times.
Several times.
Both solo and competitively, and it's a great game. So here's my review. Terraforming Mars. Go buy it. It seriously is a great game. So I want to try to explain this to you. I've taught it a few times to different people in our gaming group and friends and family, and I taught it to Doug. However, he's only played a couple of times now, I think.
Yeah, there's still some details I can tighten up on a little bit. So,
right.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in this game, but it's really not a complicated game once you get the grasp of it, and I guess you could say that about most games, but it really isn't. So let's start with the board. This is the main board. This is a map of Mars. I understand this is scientifically accurate with different named areas on the planet Mars. But there's, as you can see, a rather busy board, so let me point out a few things. First of all, you can see the planet Mars here, and there are hexagons that you will be placing different tiles in, and there are resources on these hexagons. You'll also notice that there is a graph or a scale up here, whatever you want to call it, a thermometer scale right here, and there are some different tiles. If you can see, I don't know how well this will show up on the camera, but there are some light blue shading to some of these tiles, and that is so that we can meet the three major parameters of the game. To complete the game, three things have to happen. Number one is you have to have 14% oxygen, because remember, this is terraforming Mars. We're trying to make this habitable for humans. So we're going to go from 0, this is our oxygen tracker, all the way over to 14% oxygen. Once we get to that point, there's no more oxygen needed for this phase. The next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to raise the temperature on Mars, because Mars is a cold, cold place. Right now it is at negative 30 degrees Celsius. We need to get that all the way up to plus 8 degrees Celsius, which is still pretty cold, but yes, you can survive in it. So the third thing, the third main parameter that we need to accomplish is by placing 9 of these ocean tiles. And these are why some of the hexagons are shaded blue. That's where the ocean tiles will go. Once all 9 of the ocean tiles are out, then no more ocean tiles can be placed. That is the major goal. So that is what we're going to do to accomplish or complete the entire game. Now, this is a competitive game, unless of course you're playing solo, but normally this is a competitive game. However, we're all working on those three parameters.
The same project. The
same project. So in other words, we're all trying to raise the temperature. We're all trying to place ocean tiles. We're all trying to raise the oxygen. However, if I raise the temperature first, I'm going to get terraforming points, or raise my terraform rating, which really translates into victory points. The ultimate goal of this game is to get the most terraforming points or victory points in the game. So while we're all three trying to do the same thing, we're all trying to do it before the others can do it, therefore taking advantage of those victory points. I'll probably default to calling them that a lot just because I'm used to that. So you'll also notice there are some spots on the bottom of this board. These are, first of all, milestones and awards. So let's talk about the milestones a little bit. As you're placing different tiles on this board, you're going to reach certain milestones. One thing we're going to do is we each have a different color, like this is green that Douglas Jr. usually likes to have. We're going to start by placing that on the 20. That is the terraform rating of 20. Every player starts there, and you really start the game basically with 20 victory points. However, we want to add to that by raising our terraform rating. As we raise our terraform rating, we're going to move the marker around the board. This is a common scoring system that's been used in lots of games. If you are the first one to get your Terraform rating to 35, then you can claim this milestone. This means you are the first one to get to 35. You can claim that milestone by paying $8, and we'll talk about currency in a little bit. They're actually called mega credits. Again, I default to calling them dollars just because I'm used to that. But if you are the first one, you can claim that milestone by paying your 8 mega credits, and at the end of the game, you will receive 5 victory points. Also, there is another spot here. If you are the first one to place 3 cities, you can, and we'll talk about the city tiles in a moment. They look like this. But if you're the first one to place 3 of these city tiles, then you can claim the Mayor Award. And again, that costs $8 to claim. And at the end of the game, you'll receive 5 victory points. Also for the gardener, if you're the first one to place 3 of these gardening or greenery tiles, then you can claim that milestone. Same conditions. $8, you get 5 victory points. The builder tile is one that will allow you, if you're the first one, to have 8 builder tags in your active deck. This is a card-driven game, and we'll show you the tags in a little bit, but it's just a little symbol on the cards. If you have 8 cards in your active deck that have the builder icon, you can claim this award, or this milestone, I should say. Or if you have 16 of the cards in your hand that are not active, then you can claim the Planner Award. Now, if some of that doesn't quite make sense yet, just hang in there with us, and you'll understand more later. Now, the awards are a little different. They're similar in that they are prizes you can claim in hopes of getting victory points. However, while the milestones are sure bets, you know you've got that, you've claimed it, you've got the thing. By the way, only 3 of these milestones can be claimed. So once 3 of them are claimed, the other 2 just can't be used. So the first 3 that claim them get to have them, or one person could claim all 3 or any combination. The awards are the same in that only 3 can be claimed. However, these are projections. In other words, the Landlord Award, I might be playing it. I'm placing a lot of cities and I own a lot of properties. I'm owning some of the greeneries. I'm owning some of these different factories and corporations and such. And I think by the end of the game, I'm going to have the most property on this map. So sometime during the game, I'm going to pay my $8, my 8 mega credits, and I'm going to claim the Landlord Award. Now, I don't have any victory points for sure yet, but if I'm right, and at the end of the game, I have the most property on the map, then I will get 5 victory points.
So basically the awards are essentially a type of gamble in the game. You may win it, and if so, it'll pay off. It'll be a really good advantage towards the end of the game, but you don't know it's going to work. So you have to be pretty confident to
exactly.
do
They're
it.
a bit of a gamble. Also, if you're playing with more than 2 players, there's a second place that would be rewarded. So let's say I claim Landlord, however, I'm not the first place Landlord, I'm the second place. Well, I'll still get 2 victory points for that. Same thing here for Banker. If you think you're going to be the one that ends the game with the most money left over, you can claim the Banker Award. We have Scientist, which is another category that refers to tags on the cards. If you have the most active cards that have a Scientist tag on them, you might think you're going to win that one. You can claim that one. Thermalist would be the one that thinks they're going to have the most heat, and we'll talk about heat in a bit. You think you have the most heat resources left over, you can claim that one. And then Miner, you may think you're the one that will end up with the most steel and titanium resources left over, you can claim that one. One little different thing about the awards is that the first one to claim one of these awards, it does cost $8. The second one to claim it, it costs them $14, and the third one to claim costs $20, and that's because as you get a little further along in the game, you'll have a better idea. So the first person is really taking a bigger risk, and so they only have to pay $8. But I will say this, the victory points for milestones and awards are potentially 5 victory points each, and that's big in this game. So
especially if you get both.
Yeah, well, if you can get more than one, that's excellent. So these are definitely worth paying attention to, and I think it's something that a lot of beginning players miss out on. Just because it seems like an extra, but it's really critical, I think, to the game. Another thing I probably should have mentioned is that any of the tiles, the things that we're going to be placing and accomplishing here on the board can be purchased just flat out here according to this standard projects panel. And that would tell us that This one here says if I want to turn in some of my cards that are in my hand, I know I'm not going to use them, I can turn in X number of cards for X number of dollars. So I can turn in 5 cards, I can get $5 back. I can turn in 1 card and get $1 back, and that would be a single action. Also for $11 or 11 mega credits, I can buy an energy production increase. Again, we'll talk about that in a bit. For $14, you can buy a raise in temperature. And for $18, you can buy an ocean tile to place. $23 will get you a greenery or a forest tile to place. And $25 will get you a city plus $1 money production increase to place. So these are a little expensive for these resources, but there are times when this is the best way to go about it because you need that to reach your goal. Am I clear so far?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
And I mean, if it's not too out of bounds, I would say probably the question right now is, okay, but how do you go about purchasing? What is the currency situation in the game?
Right. We need some money. So,
so let's talk
all
about
the
that.
resources are designated by these colored cubes here. Every resource we have. The copper colored cubes, the small ones, are 1s each. So that's $1, 1 mega credit, 1 plant, 1 steel, 1 titanium, 1 pet. Yes, there are pets in this game. 1 microbe. Whatever resources you're gathering, these represent 1s. The silvers represent 5s, and the yellows or the golds represent 10s. So if I need $20, I can get 2 of these 10s, or I can get 1 10 and 2 of the silvers for 2 5s. If I need 19, I can get a gold, a silver, and 4 copper. Whatever combination, of course, you can make change, and you'll have to make change at times.
And as the game goes on, especially with multiplayer games, we both highly encourage you, don't stick with just a bunch of coppers because you will run out so quickly.
Yeah.
Definitely mix and match and work your math muscles a little
Every once
bit.
in a while, you need to kind of turn in some coppers for a silver or gold.
It'll pay off.
It definitely will. Although they do give you a pretty good supply. But yeah, you're right. When you're playing with 3, 4, 5 people, you can run out. So let's take a look at the player mat. All right. And that is this piece right here. And I believe that's in the shot pretty good. All right. We'll make sure we're there. So this piece right here is the player mat. Every player has their own. Now, first of all, there's been a lot of chat online about the
construction,
component quality, whatever you want to call it. These are terrible because they look fine. They look great. The artwork's great. There's a little piece of cardstock.
The display itself is fine.
But the problem is you have to use your markers here to mark all these different little numbers. And boy, if somebody bumps it, those things just move very easily. So that is a problem because everybody bumps the table sometimes.
Yeah, and these are basically your statistics throughout the entire game. That's going to tell you where you are, how you're doing.
And there's so many of them, you really can't always remember exactly where everything was. So that is a problem. The only thing I suggest is that you, and this is what I do, I kind of set mine over to the side so I'm not reaching across it constantly or something like that to bump it. So I set mine to the side and I keep my cards a little more in front of me. There are some third-party products that are online that you can buy, which I think I'm probably going to invest in pretty soon because these just aren't very good. But they'll serve for our purposes, and I have played many games with them, and they've sufficed. So I mean, you can play with them, but you just have to be careful.
Don't hold it against the game.
No, it's a great game.
It has so much more good than it does flaws.
So let's look at this card again. I get going down these rabbit holes. I have to be careful.
Yeah.
That's been discussed a lot online already, so I don't need to do it anymore. This yellow square represents currency. These are called mega credits. If you are reading a card, it will be designated by an M, a big M, and a little E. Or it's not really an E, it's a little symbol. But anyway, those are mega credits. I suppose it's more of a C with a little decoration on it.
Yeah, it's like a little
make more sense. So,
C dash thing.
Anyway, kind of looks like an E because it's got little lines. But mega credits, or dollars, I'll probably call them. So these are your mega credits. What you'll do, well, let's go through the board, then I'll tell you what you do. This brown box here with the hammer and looks like a wrench, that's steel production, or steel. And the star here is titanium. And the leaf here is plants. The lightning bolt in the purple box is energy. And the horizontal lightning bolts in the orange box are heat. So, again, all of your currency is tracked by these little cubes here. So, if I start the game, for instance, with $30, 30 mega credits, I can take 10, 20, and say 2 5s, that's $30. I'm going to put my resources in there. If I have 2 steel, I'm going to put 1, 2 of these copper cubes in there. I now have 2 steel. I can have 1 titanium. I'd put 1. I can have 4 plants, whatever. Okay, I'm going to put my resources in the big box. The little boxes with the numbers, that's my production rate. So at the end of every round, or they call them generations in this game, at the end of every generation, we are going to generate more resources according to where our little markers are at. So if I put one of my markers on, well, normally you'll start at 1, then at the end of every round or every generation, I'm going to get $1 new. All right, and actually I'll get more than that, but I'm going to produce $1 new, and I'll tell you a little more about that in a minute. So keep that in mind. We'll come back to that. If my marker is at, I'll have another marker, for instance, at let's say I'm at 3 sometime during the game for steel, and we go to another round or another generation, I'm going to get 3 new pieces of steel. All right, same thing with titanium. Depending on where my marker is during the game, I'm going to generate, for instance, if it's on the 2, I'll generate 2 pieces of titanium, and so on and so forth. Plants, energy, heat. I'm going to generate that many resources. All right, so I will fill that up at the end of every round or every generation according to where my markers are at. That's why it's so important that your markers kind of stay put, so you can keep track of all this.
And I think it's worth mentioning that, just to break it down into a really simple this and that thing, the top 3 things on this sheet are your types of currency, basically. I think it's fair enough. And then the bottom 3, they're going to be more like your supplies. And they have little symbols down here, and we'll explain that.
Yeah, and he's right. These can be spent. Of course, dollars can be spent to purchase these resources. They can be spent to purchase cards. They can be spent to activate cards. Can be spent for different things during the game. But also steel can be spent. It can only be spent on certain cards, and titanium can be spent, and it can only be spent on certain cards and certain items. So you have to watch for that. But these can all be used for currency at some different level. Plants cannot be spent for any cards or anything like that. Neither can energy, neither can heat. However, plants, according to the chart here, can be spent on getting greenery tiles to place on the board. So if I have 8 plants, and it's all right here on the map, if I have 8 plants, I can take an action and I can buy myself one of these greenery tiles to place on the board. If I have 8 heat resources, I can spend 8 heat resources and buy myself a rise in the temperature on the board.
Thus getting another victory point.
And that's going to get me some victory points. Energy is a little different. In between every generation, whatever energy you have, let's say you end that round or that generation with 2 energy resources, before you replenish for the next generation, you're going to slide those over. It turns into heat because you can't store energy. But then you'll regenerate. For instance, if I had my marker was on 5 energy during the game somewhere, I would slide over the ones from the previous round. They would slide over here, and then I would place 5 more there, and so on. And eventually, if I don't use them, they'll slide over, and I'll end up with 8 or more over here that can be spent on raising the temperature. So these player mats are very important. These are going to track your resources. They're going to track your money. And so it is very, very important that you mark everything accurately. And like I said, don't bump it because you're going to lose your place. So be careful with that. Or buy one of those neat products that keeps them all in place for you, whatever you would like to do. So what do you think now, Doug? Any
so far,
questions?
everything's really good. The only thing I can really think of, just that we may not have precisely answered, was we talk about generations. What are those? As you can see, these are victory point trackers, and we all start out here. We all start up here for a multiple player game. The generations tracker is actually this white cube down here on 1. That's going to move up each round after everyone's done doing all their actions. Right. That's going to move up. So that's the generation tracker. It's really simple. Just keeps track of how long the game's going, basically.